Richard Donner's Superman, Iron Man, Matt Reeves' The Batman, X-Men, The Dark Knight, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, The Incredibles, Tim Burton's Batman, Into the Spider-Verse, and The Avengers. What these movies have in common is that if you were to ask a superhero movie fan what is the best first superhero movie for someone to watch who has never been a part of the subgenre, they would likely say one of those several movies. Now, today I'm here to ask which one of these movies is the best superhero movie to watch as a one-size-fits-most type of answer. And before we ever get started, if you do run into a scenario where you are showing somebody their first superhero movie, whether it be your child, niece, nephew, general friend, what have you, the best first one for them is whichever one you believe they would enjoy the most. They like darker, grittier detective stories, then by all means show them a Batman movie. If they prefer kind of more fun, lighthearted movies like that, maybe showing them something like Ant-Man or Iron Man or Spider-Man would probably be a little bit of a better choice, or even characters like Shazam. And so like I said, in this video we are looking for the best one-size-fits-most answer to that question using the pool of movies that I topped this video off with. I'm going to start this really off with the one experience I did have in this exact scenario, where when I was back in college, me and my roommate had a friend over, and we had decided that we were going to watch a movie. And she had mentioned that she has pretty neutral to the whole superhero movie boom, and she had no real opinion about those movies, and we suggested watching what me and my roommates collectively decided is the best superhero movie, The Dark Knight. And we watched it, she liked it, and she really wanted to watch some more. And so then she asked us what we think the best one was. And we both replied, well, you just watched it. That was what we believe is the best. It's our favorite one. And you could almost see in her eyes that she felt almost a little bit disappointed. It's almost like well, I guess it's all downhill from here. I mean, if that's the best that this genre has to offer, I did really, really like it, but no other movie's going to live up to this one. I felt like I had done a disservice to a potential fan of the subgenre, even a casual fan of the subgenre. And so I think moving forward, we should try to eliminate movies that are just too good. I know that sounds really sort of backwards, but when I tell you that I felt like I'd almost done a disservice because I showed a movie that was too good too early, you're peaking too early. You're peaking in high school. You want to have a good movie, but not a phenomenal movie, if that makes sense. So for that reason, I think we should take a look at all of the movies in that pool, and we should cut out every single one of them that has an audience Rotten Tomato score of 90% or higher. Now, I'm going to have that list right here. Those movies are The Dark Knight, Iron Man, Into the Spider-Verse, and The Avengers. Now, moving on from the last criteria, I want to take a look at Richard Donner's Superman and Tim Burton's Batman movies, because if you were to ask somebody what their favorite superhero movie is or what the best first one to watch is, and they say go all the way back to the beginning and watch one of those two movies, because those two really help pioneer what the superhero movie craze is today. When you look back at those two movies, they're fantastic. They are arguably the two greatest representations of their respective heroes, Clark Kent Superman or Bruce Wayne Batman. And if you were to ask people today who the best actors and best interpretations of those characters are, they'd likely say Superman from Richard Donner's 1978 masterpiece, or Michael Keaton in 1989's Batman. And I'm hesitant to say that they're the best first movie. Again, if your friend wants to watch and really enjoys older films, then by all means, these will probably be right up their alley. But for that one-size-fits-most answer, we gotta take them out as outliers, because a foundation is to be respected, but foundations are rarely peaks. So these movies, I think, are just too old And a lot of things have changed. Although things were pioneered and things have been brought over from those movies, certain tropes, they're simply not like how movies are made today. And I think we need to pick a more modern choice. So we're going to take these two movies out of our pool. Now, going to the complete other end of the timeline and on the other side of that concept, we have 2022's The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves. And if you haven't seen my video about what I would do for the Batman sequels, I'd suggest clicking the card where I go over what I'd like to see from this movie's two potential sequels. And moving on, continuing with this video, I believe that this movie should not be someone's first superhero movie for a completely other reason that we haven't talked about yet, and that's runtime. When you look at Matt Reeves' The Batman, it is the second longest superhero movie by theatrical runtime, only bested by Avengers Endgame. I know that Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Cut was like 3 hours, 2 minutes, and Zack Snyder's Justice League was over 4 hours. But those two movies were director's cuts. They were not shown in theaters as a theatrical premiered release. I believe the only one that beats out the Batman in terms of a longer cut was Avengers Endgame, which did get just over the 3 hour mark. Now, the Batman was 176 minutes, if I remember the number correctly, which is just under 3 hours, and that's a long movie. I love long movies. I have done the MCU in one sitting, actually. I have done Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit in one sitting. I've done Legend of Korra and Avatar: Last Airbender all in one sitting as well. And I know I'm an outlier when it comes to long movies. I really love when you can sit and marinate in the story and in a world for 3 to 4 hours, and that can be your experience. But I know that I, like many of you likely are outliers in that scenario. So for a casual fan, one size fits most answer, I think we should stick to a movie that is no longer than 2 hours. So with that, we are going to be cutting Matt Reeves' The Batman, but we're also going to be left with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, The Incredibles, and X-Men. Now, looking at these three movies, before we go any further, I am not going to cut any of these three. And I'm going to make a pitch to you for each one on which one might be the best of this entire pool of movies really quickly. And that is with two different categories. One of those categories being a solo movie versus a team movie, or live action versus animation. When looking at these three movies, obviously The Incredibles is the one animated picture. And so if you have a friend who does really like animated movies, then by all means, I believe The Incredibles would be the best one-size-fits-most, very, very safe answer to the question of what is the best first superhero movie. Now, when it comes to live action, you have the two options of Spider-Man and X-Men. And that brings into that other category of team-based versus solo movie. And when you look at Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, you can't go wrong with that as anybody's first superhero movie. It's made in 2002. It is almost just as young in the superhero, it's almost as new in the superhero genre as it is old, if you count Superman's 1978 movie as the beginning of this boom. 2002 is pretty right in the center. Same with X-Men, and a bit less so The Incredibles. These movies all made between 2000 and 2004. And with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, it's a classic. You have Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man going up against the classic Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. This will help build up very, very nicely if you were to watch all of these Spider-Man movies, capping off with No Way Home, which is one of the greatest Spider-Man movies ever made. I adore that movie. I know some people don't like it, but I mean, you can't go wrong. It's fantastic. Which we can talk about that maybe in another video. When you look at X-Men, what I love about X-Men is the fact that since it is team-based, you have a plethora of heroes that you can fall in love with. You have, of course, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. You have Storm. You have Cyclops, Jean Grey. You have Rogue, Professor X, Charles Xavier. You have a team of villains in this movie. You have, Sir Ian McKellen's Magneto. You have Mystique. You have Toad. and you have Sabretooth. Great villains, fun heroes. It's a 100-minute runtime, roughly, and so it's going to be a great movie that is going to be what I call extremely efficient in its storytelling, and that's kind of my pitch for all three of those movies, as they're all fantastic. They're good or great, but not pinnacle great. And if you had to ask me which one of those three I would show somebody as the first super movie, if I had to pick one of the three, I would personally choose X-Men. I mean, I did talk it up a little bit more than the other two, and I personally would choose X-Men, but you can't go wrong with any choice that was talked about today, even The Dark Knight, even though I personally had a not perfect experience with that movie when I showed it to my friend a couple years ago. So, one last thing to talk about for X-Men, to kind of, if in case you don't quite agree with me quite yet, assuming that the person does enjoy that movie, X-Men spawns not only a trilogy of movies, but an entire universe with movies that are fantastic in X-Men Days of Future Past, Logan, and of course, Deadpool. But it does also have some lesser hitters, like X-Men The Last Stand and The New Mutants, and so you're going to get a very, very wide range of polarizing movies, and you even get one movie that I think isn't as bad as people claim it to be, and that's X-Men Origins Wolverine. Watch the video in the card if you are interested in hearing why I really like that movie, where I know a lot of people really don't. And so, when looking at this movie as it spawns a cinematic universe, you can show somebody a cinematic universe of heroes and how it can interact with recasting of main characters like Charles Xavier and Magneto being recasted with James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. Rebecca Romijn gets recasted with Jennifer Lawrence. You get multiple actors playing the same characters, and so that also kind of feeds into the fact that there's like 20 Batman, 50 Spider-Man, and like 6 Supermen. You have a bunch of different actors playing the same heroes. It kind of primes your brain to understand that it's a character, not an actor, which is a whole debate for another day. And lastly, with it being the X-Men universe, you're not going to have to sludge through over 100 hours of just movies to be caught up. MCU. So, if you like this video, and if you agree with what I said with X-Men, Spider-Man, or The Incredibles being the best first superhero movie, or X-Men if you had to pick one of the three, please leave a comment down below and like this video if you haven't already, and please subscribe if you did also again like this video. And with all that being said, have a very lovely day.